And finally we get to the other straight-to-video or TV movie, Return of the Living Dead: Rave to the Grave. Well, luckily it's much better than Necropolis, but it's still nowhere near as good as the first three. The film is the only film in the series to actually bring back characters from a previous film. The characters Becky, Charles and Julian all return in this movie. Of course, Charles was killed in the opening scene, so there's not much point in mentioning him. Okay, there is, because he's a crucial part of the plot. In the opening scene, Charles goes to a mortuary where he's meant to sell one of the remaining trioxin barrels that isn't owned by the government. He's going to sell it to the Russian government for some reason. The people buying the barrel makes Charles test it on some of the corpses in the mortuary. Smart idea. It's not like no one there knows the effects of the trioxin at all. I mean, they didn't even restrain the corpses. Unsurprisingly, they all die. Then we go to Julian, who is now at college. After finding out his uncle died, he goes back to his old house. While clearing out the attic, he finds a secret room where the other trioxin barrels are being held. He takes one of them to his geeky science friend for testing. His geeky science friend Cody tests to see what's chemically inside of the trioxin. They find out that it's chemically similar to ecstasy. One of their friends, Jeremy, tastes it and starts to go into a spasm and foams at the mouth. Afterward, he describes it as an awesome trip. After Julian and his girlfriend Jenny leave, Cody and Jeremy decide to take the trioxin liquid and turn it into a pill and sell it as a drug known as Z. Meanwhile, the two surviving Russian government members from the opening scene are trying to find the barrels. They're pretty much the comic relief for the film. They have a couple of funny moments here and there, but for the most part it's really awkward, especially since both of them give absolutely horrendous performances. One of them especially gives one of the worst performances I've seen in a horror movie in a long time. The final climax of the movie takes place at a rave that Jeremy is hosting. There are lots of people who take the Z and it turns them into zombies, so everyone has to essentially kill the zombies and save as many people as possible. This is probably the best part of the movie and it's surprisingly fun. The biggest problem with the film is once again how the zombies die. For the first half of the movie, they go back to the rules of the original movie where nothing kills them except for destroying their body. And then for the second half, they go back to the everything kills them rule. It's really annoying. The whole film is much more pleasant to watch. The previous movie was incredibly ugly and dull. This movie is very colourful and doesn't make you feel incredibly uninterested like the previous movie did. The effects are really good and for the most part are practical. There is some CGI and unsurprisingly it's not very good, but the practical effects are all top notch. The film is enjoyably bad at times. I'm not denying the fact that this is a really bad movie, but it's nowhere near as dull and uninteresting as the previous movie. The previous movie was about an hour of setup and then 30 minutes of zombies being shot. It got really repetitive, and I'm not saying that this film doesn't get repetitive, but it's a much more fun film than Necropolis was. The film is full of plot holes, terrible dialogue, and some of the worst acting to ever come out of a sci-fi movie, but it's not the worst movie I've ever seen. It has some fun moments, and there are some funny so bad it's good moments in there as well, but it's still quite bad. I give Return of the Living Dead: Rave to the Grave a 3.5 out of 10. And that wraps up the Return of the Living Dead series. The first three are really good, but the fourth and fifth movies are just terrible. Now it's time to rank the movies from worst to best. The fifth and worst film in the series is Necropolis. Number 4, Rave to the Grave. Number 3, Return of the Living Dead Part 2. Number 2, Return of the Living Dead 3, and the number 1 and best movie in the series is Return of the Living Dead, the original. We're almost done with the reviews for the month. In fact, we only actually have 2 series left. The next one is a trilogy of movies. I've never seen any of the movies, so I'm really excited to finally give them a watch. The reviews were requested by a YouTuber called Karen Ferguson. So come back tomorrow for the first of my reviews of the Lost Boys movies.